What is up, you guys? Teller checking in for UFC 293. I'm extremely excited for this card. And let's be clear, I'm excited for the main event. This fight card, very reminiscent to a boxing type of fight card, right? I mean, we're really just waiting for this main event to take place. I mean, yeah, we have the co-main event between Tuivasa and Alexander Volkov, which is a great fight. But other than that, this isn't the most stacked of cards, at least when you compare it to major pay-per-view events. But dude, this main event is just absolute fire, all right? I cannot wait for the press conference. I cannot wait for all the bad blood to continue to brew. I mean, this is just an awesome fight card, if you ask me. Again, specifically because the main event. And don't get me wrong, there's some exciting matchups throughout the card as well. Listen, we're going to jump into the first fight here in 1 second. I promise you guys, I will make this very quick as far as the intro goes. But I just want to put this out there real quick. We have been stringing off profitable event after profitable event as of recently. I'm extremely hot right now. If you guys want to work with me for my official plays in this card, I'm telling you guys, I got some fire plays locked up. I'm coming off that big 6-unit play that we just hit last weekend on UFC Paris. And I'm just giving you guys a heads up there. And also, if you're looking to sign up for a new sportsbook, if you sign up to bovada.lv using my referral link, if you reach out to me, I'm going to give you this entire card for free and another card, and you're going to get an added deposit bonus to your account. So if you're interested in that, just reach out to me, and I would love to work with you guys there. And then just catch me on my social media, on Instagram at MMAFortuneteller_, where I'm going to be going nuts on IG all week, making funny memes, all that types of stuff, man. You guys know I got the new video editor type thing. I'm making all types of funny videos there, so you guys can expect some wild stuff this week. I'm just telling you. And then on Twitter at the MMA Teller. All right, I won't keep you guys anymore. Let's go talk about this first fight.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA Fortune Teller. Yeah.
The MMA Fortune Teller.
The teller.
Kicking this thing off, we have two UFC newcomers, Kevin Jousset taking on Kiefer Crosbie. Kiefer Crosbie should be a name that you guys are familiar with. He's been fighting over in Bellator for a little bit, fighting at a SBG in Ireland. This is a guy that, he has a big mouth, but he backs it up, always brings the fight. As far as his skill set goes, I wouldn't say he's the most talented fighter, but he is a very tough guy, has good boxing skills. He's coming off a couple of wins. In his last fight, he had an exhibition boxing victory over Aaron Chalmers. Aaron Chalmers is a pretty good fighter. You guys seen him over in Bellator. He won that fight. Before that, he had a couple other nice victories. He had a knockout over Alex Cowboy Oliveira in the first round. Of course, the former UFC fighter. But you know Alex Oliveira is all over the place these days, but we'll still give him some props for that victory. Had another first-round knockout victory before that. Then you take a look at his losses. Got submitted via arm triangle choke by Georgi Karakhanyan, a longtime staple over in Bellator. Was knocked out by Charlie Leary. I want to talk about that fight a little bit more here in a second. And then you go back to the other loss, which was against Mike Jackson, but do understand that he was putting it on Mike Jackson and he got DQ'd for hitting him with an illegal knee. So those are the losses there. The Charlie Leary loss is maybe the most alarming loss. I'll say this because he started that fight off very good. He was really bringing it to him. But Kiefer Crosbie is a fighter that really doesn't have a lot of success late in his fights. The majority of his victories are via finish. And, this is a guy that really goes out early and looks to put it on his opponent. And I think he can slow down a little bit. I have more faith in Kevin Jousset later in this fight. And I'll say this also. Kevin Jousset, he is of French descent, but he's fighting out of Australia, trading with City Kickboxing, has a very, very similar style to Israel Adesanya and all those guys. Kind of holds the hands low, whipping the leg kicks, has that Izzy type style. And the only issue with that I could see is when I've seen his hands low, he is susceptible to being hit with some big shots there at times. And a guy like Kiefer Crosbie will be throwing heat at him, especially early on. Okay, that being said, I expect Jousset to have a lot of success with his leg kicks and even offensively as well, especially when we go into the second and third rounds. And, I think that Kiefer could slow down and Kevin Jousset will take this fight over. Kevin Jousset's coming off a ground and pound TKO victory. He's showing some growth with his grappling. He's pretty good at these little inside leg trips. He kind of does these little trips with his legs, and he'll get on top of you and he'll rain down some ground and pound as well. So I am a fan of Kiefer Crosbie. Okay, let me just say that. I like this guy's attitude. This is a fighter that says he's been waiting for this moment for 20 years. He's been looking forward to this moment, okay? So understand how big of a moment this is for Kiefer Crosbie. And he is a UFC type of fighter in the sense, as far as it goes, how Dana White likes those guys that come out there, bring the fight. He has connections to Conor McGregor and whatnot. So, the UFC, they want him to have some success out there. And I was close to picking him here as an underdog. But listen, when it's all said and done, I think that this dude, Kevin Jousset, shows to have a little bit more promise, and he's more likely to go out there and get the job done, in my opinion. On Jazz Sports, he opened up as a minus 112, and now he is a minus 138 favorite. So action coming his way slightly. I think when you break down the tape on him, you see that he's just a little bit more of a polished fighter, okay? Again, I'll just repeat this one more time, though. Kiefer Crosbie has big power in his hands. He'll look to use his footwork, close the distance, and throw those Mike Tyson types of boxing shots. You know what I'm saying? He'll get on the inside. He'll rip heavy shots. But Kevin Jousset seems to be pretty tough. And as the fight plays out longer, he's more skillful, in my opinion. I really expect him to have success with the leg kicks, whipping those calf kicks. And I just kind of see him putting it on Crosbie late. So, my pick will be Kevin Jousset, and he's 8-2 as a pro. We don't have a reach and a height here for him, but understand, in my opinion, for what I'm seeing, Kevin Jousset will be the much more rangy fighter as well. He should be taller and should have a reach advantage with his legs and his arms, so I think that will help him if he looks to strike from the outside. As far as value goes, it's still a very close line, so I'll point towards there being more value on Kevin Jousset, even at the minus 138. If it gets up towards minus 150, be a little wary about it. Like I said, Crosbie has some power. He's a very hungry fighter right now, and he has momentum coming into this fight. He's been getting his hand raised. With the card taking place in Sydney, Australia, of course, we're going to have a bunch of City Kickboxing fight members here. Shane Young, another one of them. And not to be cliche, man, these guys all have that similar type of style. Shane Young has that similar type of City Kickboxing style. He's a good striker. Comes into this fight on a 3-fight losing skid, as he'll now be taking on Gabriel Miranda, a guy that is, I think Miranda really has his back up against the wall in this match. We'll talk about why in a second. But first, I want to talk about Shane Young a little bit. He also has his back against the wall. If he loses this fight, I think it's the last time we see him fighting in the octagon. Still only 30 years old. I think he has a lot more to give. He's been coming up a little bit short in his last couple of fights. The loss against Blake Bilder, the movement of Bilder gave him some problems. Before that, he had a loss to Omar Morales. And both of those fights, he had his moments, but again, came up short. And then before that, he was knocked out against Ludovit Klein. Ludovit Klein has been shown to be a good fighter. He has some serious power, and he got caught slipping that day, did Shane Young. But I know Shane Young is extremely hungry to get the job done here in his home country. This is a guy that's going to be at the weigh-ins, the stare-downs, doing his native dance and all that. He brings all that energy into his fights. I know he's going to bring it here. I know he's going to bring the fight. And now his opponent, the reason why I say he has his back against the wall, he's coming off a loss in his UFC debut against Benoit Saint-Denis, who we know is the truth. And Gabriel Miranda actually had some decent success in that first round. I thought, as I was rewatching that tape, I was surprised to see some of the success he had in that first round compared to some of his earlier fights that I was breaking down on him, because his striking seemed to be very low level. He's more of a submission type of player. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player. But in the first round against Benoit Saint-Denis, he actually landed some shots on the feet. He eventually broke down, was finished in the second round. And I think he has his back against the wall here, because I think that this is a fight where if he loses, we will see the last of him as well. Now, you take a look at how he's been getting the job done, right? 16 victories as a pro, 10 via submission. We'll take a look at Shane Young. You take a look at his losses. He has never been submitted. He's a fighter that has decent takedown defense, and I think that Gabriel Miranda may run into some trouble as far as getting this fight down to the mat and trying to pull off some type of sub. And he's diverse with his submission skills. Another problem I have with Miranda is that he has been very inactive. He hadn't had a pro fight, I believe, for about a year going into his UFC debut. And then now, as he comes off the BSD loss, it's been about a year since that fight has taken place, almost exactly a year as well. He's 33 years old. I do not like the way that he's having these long layoffs. And, yes, maybe he's sharpening up his overall skill set. Maybe he's working on striking, but I don't have too much faith in it. He is the taller fighter, but he actually will be at a reach disadvantage. I think that will also play into Shane Young striking from the outside. I think Shane Young can keep this fight standing and have some success there. I could see Miranda hanging around early on, but eventually I think that Shane Young will have success. He'll land some big shots. And I think that there's some potential that Shane Young gets a finish, a KO or a TKO type of victory here. So that's the route I will be going. Let's take a look at the betting line. We'll check out my bookie. Shane Young opened as a minus 161. It did dip the other way there for a little bit. He was a minus 156, and then now we're seeing steady movement his way where he has touched as high as a minus 172. That's more of what I would have expected. I think that Shane Young should be right around a minus 175 to 180 favorite. That's what I would expect to see. And, am I crazy about betting him in that spot at that line? He's coming in off three losses and whatnot, but you know what? I don't have a problem with it. I don't. I think he's hungry. I think those losses actually will fuel his fire here. He's the better fighter. And anything from like minus 175 down, I don't have a major problem with. I think there might be some possible value there. And again, you take a look at the potential for him to finish this fight, landing some big shots, maybe finishing this fight in the second or third rounds. Now, it wouldn't be an easy fight card if he didn't get his boy Blood Diamond on the undercard. And no shame towards him there, because you guys know a lot of the big names in the game do this. Nate Diaz always has some of his scrubs on the undercard. McGregor's been doing that as well throughout the years. And I'm not throwing any shade towards his way. I'm just saying it's typical. And we got a good matchup here. You know what? Blood Diamond, I know he's lost both of his UFC fights up to this point. He's 0-2 in the UFC, but I give him some credit. He's a tough fighter that is clearly working on his takedown defense and rounding out his overall game. And he takes on Charlie Radtke here. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. This dude, Charlie, 33 years old. He has been dying to fight in the octagon from what I've been seeing. And this is pretty cool. You can pull up his IG and see the moment he finds out that he's getting a UFC contract. I think that's awesome. This is a fighter, even though he doesn't have an overwhelming amount of pro fights, he's been involved in the fight game for a long time. This is a fighter that's been active on the jiu-jitsu scene as well. I think the strength of him is his grappling, I would say, even though his striking's not that bad. And you see him over here getting swarmed by the boys. That's always an awesome thing, man. You gotta feel for him there. I mean, that's awesome. You gotta relate to that moment. But back to some of the work that he's been doing. 33 years old, 3 losses, which I want to talk about here in a second. But he's coming in with some real momentum. He's been winning a bunch of fights. It's not listed here, but he had a grappling match with Joseph Pfeiffer. I think he lost it, but still, it's good to see him performing in those types of fights against upper echelon fighters like that. He's coming off a rear naked choke victory, I believe. And then I also want to point out, so the Justin Montalvo fight, he gets finished in the second round. I was just breaking down tape on that fight. He almost had the rear naked choke, man, in the first round. And when you see how close he was to getting it and then knowing that he's about to get finished up there in the second round, that had to be very frustrating for him. He almost had it, man. His hands just slipped. He almost had it locked in. Before that, losses to Chris Gonzalez over in Bellator, and lost to Austen Ulberg, who's a very good fighter. Just lost the Ultimate Fighter finale there. So good level of opponents as far as the losses go. At least the first 2 losses. I'm not really crazy about the Justin Montalvo loss. I don't really believe he's on the level, but he was slipping that day. He took an L there. I think that he's been working on his craft and he's been becoming a better fighter. When you take a look at the last couple victories that he's had, again, his grappling is good, and that's obviously going to come into effect here against a guy in Blood Diamond who is a kickboxing type of fighter first, and then now he's working on other aspects of his game. He's 35 years old. You shouldn't expect him to grow there too much, and I think that that's what's going to give him some trouble here. Now, it's also worth noting that Blood Diamond did give Jeremiah Wells some issues with the early takedowns in that first round. Eventually, Wells did get that submission there, but he made Wells work for it early on, if you remember. So he showed some toughness. Blood Diamond's not just a slouch that's just going to go out there, you're going to trip him down and choke him. I think he's really a tough guy that's working on that aspect of his game. He made the Orion Kosi fight a pretty tough outing for Kosi as well. And Kosi's a fighter that has a wrestling background. It wasn't easy for Kosi just to go out there and take him down and whatnot. So I do believe that Blood Diamond is going to give him some issues early on to get the fight down to the mat. But overall, I got to side with Charlie here. I think that he has he takes the back pretty well. He has a good ground game, and I could easily see him locking in a body triangle, getting in on Blood Diamond's back a couple times, and just maybe pulling off a sub or just solidifying rounds with the grappling. And striking-wise, he actually has shown some skills there too as well. He's a type of striker he's disciplined with the striking. He has decent form. He keeps his hands up tight. He has that real orthodox type of striking, man. It's just it's a grounded style, if you will. You know what I'm saying? His hands don't go low. He's not making a lot of mistakes where I think Blood Diamond can capitalize. So I think he can avoid some of the striking from Blood Diamond and then use his grappling to take the fight. That's where I'm going with that. All right, so let's go take a look at the betting line. On Jazz Sports, Charlie opened up as a minus 256, It went the other way there for a while. He touched minus 238, and now he's all the way to a minus 280. I don't know. I find that interesting. I think people that are on the end with Charlie Radtke. I think he's training over in Naples, Team Evolution, I believe it is, over in Naples in Florida. I know he's done some work, I believe, at MMA Masters in South Florida as well. I think from what I've been seeing online, people are decently high on this kid. They think that he's a good fighter. I think that they feel he's deserving of this moment and that he's going to use his grappling to get the job done. I think that word's getting out. That's why you're seeing action going his way. That being said, if he looks anything like he looked in that last loss we talked about against the Montalvo, which I don't expect him to go backwards, right? He's looked better since, but if he looks anything like that, I think that Blood Diamond could definitely give him a run for his money there. So I'm not crazy about the line. That's where I'm going with it. I'm not crazy about touching him. I wouldn't even be crazy about touching him at minus 256. I probably wouldn't even be crazy about touching him at the minus 220, 230 range. So you guys know what I'm feeling here. I feel there's more value on Blood Diamond, which you can get him right around even as high as a plus 220 right now. I think there's more value on him. Not saying that I would necessarily be targeting him as a play. There's been inconsistencies and a lot of things that are unproven in his overall game. We got an interesting matchup here. Nasrat Haqparast taking on Landon Quiñones. I say it's an interesting matchup, right? Landon Quiñones comes off the Ultimate Fighter, still has, 8 pro fights, 9 pro fights if you want to add the loss he took on the show. Kind of a green fighter, even though they're very close in age. Coming off that very frustrating loss where he was submitted by Jason Knight, I believe, right? Via triangle choke. Landon Quiñones gets his UFC debut matchup with a guy, Nasrat Haqparast, who's a very proven fighter, still only 28 years old, but a very proven fighter that's been in there with some big names in the game. I think that's a steep jump for a kid like Landon. Now, the reason why I think the fight happened was because Nasrat had a couple fights fall through as of recently. He was supposed to fight Jamie Mullarkey, then Sam Patterson. Those fights fell through, so I think that Landon was just chomping at the bit to get an opportunity. They matched these guys up, and I think it's going to be a tough fight for Landon. Landon, he's a dangerous striker, so he can potentially give Nasrat some issues there, but overall, I think that Nasrat has seen a lot as far as dangerous strikers go. He's been in there with guys like Makdessi, Bobby Green, Dan Hooker, had a victory over Rafa Garcia not too long ago. He's a good fighter. Victory over Alex Munoz. You go back to the first loss that he took in the octagon, which was against Drew Dober. He got knocked out. You want to talk about a phenomenal striker, of course, Drew Dober, a Muay Thai champion type of a striker. So he's been in there with some big names, man. Mark Diakese, Joaquim Silva, T-Belt Gotti. Nasrat, he has just a lot more backing him in this matchup here. If you want to play devil's advocate, you could say, yes, Landon Quiñones is a dangerous young striker that may be able to land a big shot and shake things up. And you could maybe argue, yes, we've seen Nasrat knocked out before. Again, we talked about that Drew Dober fight. Do I picture this UFC newcomer coming in and capitalizing on that type of opportunity? If I'm being realistic, no. But it is the fight game. It's going to be a crazy card, and anything could happen in there. You guys know that. But overall, I think that Nasrat, he's a very disciplined fighter. He's a tricky striker in his own right. I could see him landing some big shots on Quiñones. And, of course, I'm going with Nasrat here. Landon Quiñones, just 8 pro fights, but about half as many pro fights as Nasrat. Nasrat at 19. Landon Quiñones is 8. So Nasrat has more than double the amount of pro fights. Not a lot of big names on his resume as well. But again, there has been some earlier knockout victories, even some later knockout victories. So he obviously is a dangerous fighter. Can he land a big shot on Nasrat? We'll see. I'm not banking on that. And one other thing you have to take note, again, that performance that Landon Quiñones had on The Ultimate Fighter was a questionable performance as far as his head game goes. Man, he really made a major mistake in there, the way that he jumped into that sub. So a guy like Nasrat can definitely capitalize on rookie mistakes like that if Landon's going to go that route. So yes, I'm on Nasrat. On my bookie, he opened up as a minus 400. Action's already going his way as a minus 416. It's understandable. Again, the way more proven fighter, you could see Nasrat as high as a minus 450, 425, but now in Bovada. That's a hefty line. The only reason why I'm not necessarily crazy about it, obviously being the fact that it's a high line, but when you got a fighter like Quiñones that has power and could potentially be live to shake things up as far as that goes, you got to be a little wary when you're touching those high lines. But overall, Nasrat is a fighter that's just on another level up until this point right now. Jamie Mullarkey taking on John Makdessi. Speaking of fighters that are very inactive and that just make periodical appearances, John Makdessi is the epitome of that. John Makdessi likes to step in there about once a year, 38 years old. And, if there's somebody that gets away with that type of style of fighting, Makdessi is that because he's had some success, even up in age. He's coming off a loss against Nasrat. We just talked about Nasrat, a very talented fighter. Before that, he had that big victory against the young and talented Ignacio Bahamendez. Lost to Francisco Trinaldo before that, but then a couple of victories in a row before that. He was on a 3-fight winning streak. Lower level guys, in age, Ross Pearson and whatnot. But just understand that John Makdessi is a tough fighter, right? I think he goes by the name The Bull, right? Yep, John Makdessi, The Bull. He is a bull. This is a guy that marches forward. He could take a lot of damage, and he'll look to land big shots on you. That could be a problem for Jamie Mullarkey here because Jamie Mullarkey has been getting knocked out as of recently. He's coming off that knockout loss against Naimov. I believe that was his debut as well. Got knocked out in that fight. Was knocked out against Jalen Turner back in the middle of 2022. That fight was not that long ago. A lot of people thought that he lost the Michael Johnson fight. And then he had the victory against Francisco Prado. But understand, he just strictly used his wrestling and was able to outclass a fighter that was very green with his grappling and Prado. And it's a shame because Prado's a talented striker. He just couldn't keep that fight standing. He's not going to be able to go out there and use his wrestling to take down Makdessi. I don't believe so at all. John Makdessi has proven to be hard to get to take down. He's showcased an 85% takedown defensive rate throughout his lengthy UFC career. Okay, you take a look at the striking here. Makdessi has put more volume out through the years. He's been landing 5.52 significant strikes compared to Mullarkey's 4.2, absorbing slightly less than Mullarkey as well. I think when you analyze a lot of these stats, I think that there could be some trouble going towards Mullarkey's way. That being said, Mullarkey is a well-rounded fighter. He's a dangerous striker. I wonder where his confidence is right now, just coming off the knockout loss. And again, both those knockout losses within such a small time frame. But you know what? He's a tough dude. And, the one thing that I really like as far as Mullarkey goes is the advantage he has being such a younger fighter. Okay, that's the big thing, right? Makdessi, 38 years old. I just don't know how long you could just show up once a year, nearing 40 years old in the lightweight division. So that is the main reason why I'm edging Jamie Mullarkey here. He's also going to have a 6-inch reach advantage fighting in his hometown. It would be hard not to pick Jamie Mullarkey here, even though we talked about a couple factors that could point towards there being some issues, but Mullarkey, 29 years old, in his hometown, I think that he gets the job done. John Makdessi, out of 26 pro fights, just been finished 2 times. Like I said, very durable. I'm going to lean more towards a decision victory for Jamie Mullarkey. I think that they really scrap it out. And I would actually say if one of these guys breaks down, if this is a war and one of these guys breaks down and gets finished in a slugfest, I actually feel it would more likely be Mullarkey, but I favor Mullarkey just edging out a decision here, fighting a smart fight. And that's the route I will go with my pick. Jamie Mullarkey on my bookie opened up as a -192. We're seeing action going his way. He's a -200 favorite right now. Let's see what else we could see in these other books. A -185 on 180 above on Bovada is where he opened up at. He's now -210. We're seeing action going his way. I think that is partly due to the age and inactivity of Makdessi and the hometown edge. We'll talk about that one more time. So give me Jamie Mullarkey to win a decision, but I actually think that this fight will get dirty. You'll see some blood, and I think that they will go at it at times. Makdessi brings the fight, so Mullarkey will edge this one out. In the featherweight division, we got Jack Jenkins taking on Chepe Mariscal. Mariscal coming off a big-time victory, great performance against the very, very tough Trevor Peek. Jack Jenkins coming off a victory as well in a fight where he should have lost. If you guys remember, Jamal Emmers deserved to win that match. Come on, guys, let's be realistic here for a second. Jack Jenkins did show durability. He showed toughness and grit and whatnot. He had his moments in that fight. He's a fighter that really, really favors whipping those calf kicks. I mean, he whips those calf kicks just as good as anybody I see in the game right now, man. That's one of his strengths. He's a little stiff. He's not so fluid with his overall striking. I think that's an edge that Mariscal has coming into this fight. Mariscal, we saw in that last fight against Trevor Peek, the fluidity with his striking. I mean, this is a guy that will throw spinning attacks. He has very smooth boxing and throws nice leg kicks as well. Now, I don't really know if Mariscal has the grappling ability that a Jamal Emmers had in that match against Jenkins, so I'm not really banking on the success that he will have getting this fight to the mat. But I do believe he's a black belt in judo. He has skills there. He showed some wrestling ability, and I think that there's some potential for Mariscal to get on top of Jenkins at some points in time throughout this fight. Again, now when it comes to the striking, I think that there's also some potential that Mariscal will be a little bit more fluid with his overall striking. And Jack Jenkins showed to me in that Emmers fight that he has some holes defensively at times. He's a little stiff out there at times. His head's on the center line. And I could see Mariscal capitalizing and landing some big shots. Jenkins will throw back for sure. He'll throw heat back. And he'll have the potential to land his big shots. And it's also worth noting that we've seen Mariscal knocked out before, but I want to run through his resume with you guys real quick. Take a look at some of these losses. He was knocked out against Steve Garcia over in LFA. Steve Garcia, a bootleg UFC fighter, has some power. That wasn't a good look for him there. Was knocked out against Joe Anderson Brito. This is a fighter we know has some serious power. But in both those losses, Mariscal showed some deficiencies in his striking defense, and you have to be careful against a guy like Jenkins who throws heat. But I just don't know if Jenkins has the fluidity with his boxing skills and whatnot. Like I say, he's very stiff. I don't know if he lands that big shot and knocks him out. He has a victory over Yusuf Zalal, a victory over Pat Sabatini. Okay, this is a guy that's been around the block, and when you analyze his losses, they're all against respectable talent, right? Bryce Mitchell, Gregor Gillespie, I believe, was the first fighter to ever defeat him. Gregor Gillespie, obviously an absolute stud who has vanished from the UFC these days, but still, these are all respectable names. Bryce Mitchell, Joe Anderson Brito, Steve Garcia, Sean Siriano, a longtime Team Kill Cliff FC fighter, a good striker. Okay, so there's nothing really that's that alarming with Mariscal's resume, if you ask me. I think that he's a proven fighter. He's a well-rounded fighter. Again, I'll mention that black belt that he has in judo, coming into this fight with a lot of momentum. I'm going to be taking Chepe Mariscal to get the job done. Let's go take a look at this betting line. He's a plus 167 underdog right now on my bookie. He's an underdog across the board, of course. I could pull up some other lines if you want. Let's see, where was he over here? Jose Mariscal. So again, we've seen him as high as a plus 170 underdog. That's what he's at on Bovada right now. Was just a plus 175. Obviously, I do feel that there's some value there if I'm picking him to win this fight. I will say this, though. Jack Jenkins is a good fighter. Even though I thought he lost that fight against Emmers, it was obviously a great learning experience for him, going 15 minutes with a guy like an underrated fighter like Jamal Emmers. And again, he's dangerous with those calf kicks. I just feel that this is a line that should be much closer, if you ask me. And listen, I can't throw all favorites towards your guys' way. Otherwise, you guys will be eating me alive in the comment section. And I hate seeing those comments where you guys are like, oh, all favorites, this and that. You know what I mean? So if we're talking about a live dog here, I think that Mariscal is live. And I liked what I saw from him in his last fight. Great conditioning, great cardio as well in that last fight. And actually, I was kind of questioning that going into that match. There were some fights prior where I thought he slowed down a little bit. And that last fight against Trevor Peek, the conditioning was great. I think he checks off a lot of boxes, and I will pick him to get the job done. I'll have him most likely winning a decision. Jack Jenkins, you take a look at the two losses, both via submission. I'm not sure if Mariscal pulls off a sub. He's pulled off 3 subs throughout his career. I see more of a decision victory for Mariscal, just being more fluid and landing on the mark. The very talented striker Carlos Ulberg stepping back in there, taking on Jung, who has shown to be a very, very talented and dangerous striker in his own right at times. But coming into this fight, coming off a couple losses and really hasn't been looking as good as he was early on in his career. Carlos Ulberg, of course, fighting out of City Kickboxing. Again, I'll mention that style that they all have. Hands a little bit low, but very quick with the leg kicks and whatnot. The lone loss that we've seen from him in the octagon was a fight where he had a lot of success early on, and then he broke down against Kennedy and Nzechukwu. That was a fight where he was going in for the finish and just put a lot of volume out there. It was a learning experience for him. Again, he broke down and he was teed off on and finished himself there. I feel that he is a very talented fighter. I love the way that he bounced back from that loss. Remember now, so he loses that fight against Kennedy, and then he goes out there. He was very hesitant against Fabio Cherant. You could tell that he had some mental issues going into that fight. But then after that, he's back to what he's been doing in the past, going out there, knocking out Tafa and Nzechukwu, knocks out Nikolai Negamariano, knocks out Ihor Peterio. Now, you can argue that this talent's not necessarily the best, especially when you're talking about the Water Buffalo, Fabio, and Porterio. You're definitely not a proven fighter. But I would argue to you that Negamariano's a good fighter, and he went out there and starched him. And the way that he's going out there and getting the job done, nevertheless, it's promising. This guy is the real deal. I think that Carlos Ulberg has top 15 talent written all over him. I don't know if you guys can see this here, but I mean, I would have him over guys like Alonzo Menafield, Dominic Reyes as well. I think he knocks out Dominic Reyes these days. And I'm excited to see him matched up with some of these guys here in the top 10. I'd love to see a fight with him and Khalil Roundtree. That would be a firefight there. Carlos Ulberg, how do I see this fight playing out? I think that there's potential that he gets the knockout here. That's the route I'm going. I mean, you saw what Dustin Jacoby did to Da Un Jung. Da Un Jung can be a little sloppy here. I expect this fight to be fireworks. I expect these guys to clash. And at the very least, the performance that Da Un Jung just had against Devin Clark, where he was outstruck almost like 3-1 or something like that, if you remember that fight, that was a very alarming performance by him. I don't know what was going on with him in that fight there. So, you think about the Sam Alvey fight. That was a fight that I believe he had a lot of early success and then slowed down. There was some strange stuff going on in that fight. At this point in time, I think that Kennedy and Shekawu fight was really a big win for him, and it kind of overhyped him. I mean, he has a big frame and whatnot, but you take a look at the level of opponents. I'm not really as high as I once was on Jung. I'll tell you that. When he was going into the Dustin Jacoby fight, I really was high on him, and I've taken a step back on him. He's still only 29 years old, has a lot more time to prove that he's legit. He has a 1.5-inch reach advantage here. Both men the same height, but Carlos Ulberg is the more polished striker. He's right now he's just more mentally savvy in the cage, and I got Carlos Ulberg getting the job done, and I think it's very possible we see a knockout here. Carlos Ulberg on my book, he opened as a -285. He's now a -294, almost a 3-1 favorite. Another high favorite here. I don't know. What do you want to do with that? You guys are going to get on me for not being decisive with what I want to do with this line. It's a high line here. 3-1 favorite on Ulberg. You understand it's the light heavyweight division, and Da Un Jung, it does still possess some threats with his striking, right? I mean, if he could land a big shot, maybe wobble Ulberg up. I'm on Ulberg. Do you want to mix him in a parlay? If you're looking for a leg, go for it. Mix him in there, man. Just understand you're paying a 3-1 tag in a light heavyweight bout. Maybe look more towards the knockout prop, maybe an under potentially. I think that Ulberg is going to go look to show out in this spot here. So we'll see. If you want to play a little bit safer, just mix him in a parlay though. Staying put in the light heavyweight division, we got Tyson Pedro taking on Anton Turkalj. Tyson Pedro, first and foremost, this is a fighter that consistently comes in as a big favorite, right? He's been really, really overvalued, in my opinion, as of recently. Yes, he did go out there and knock out Isaac Villanueva and Harry Hunsucker, a.k.a. Honeysuckle. I guess you could say that the line was appropriate, right? He went in there and got the job done. But those are low-level fighters. And we saw that same type of value carry into the Modestas Bukauskas fight, where obviously the line was off. Bukauskas goes out there and gets the job done. You take a look at the loss that he had against Shogun Rua back in 2018, got knocked out by an old Shogun, was submitted by OSP, lost to Alir Latifi. I think that there has been some alarming performances by him, and I've questioned at times why he's so overvalued. I think it has something to do with the fact that he has a nice frame for the division. He looks the part. He's all tatted up, and don't get me wrong, he's a decent fighter, but I don't know why I feel that he's been overvalued a lot of times. Had the nice knockout victory against Paul Craig. Had the submission victory over a very different Khalil Roundtree. That was a very different Khalil Roundtree back in 2016. Just note that. But going into this fight, stylistically, I would say that this fight, it's a good stylistic matchup for him, because Anton Turkalj is a guy that has used his grappling to take advantage of a lot of his opponents, guys that were lacking a little bit in the grappling department. He really likes to use that little inside leg trip, take down and get on top of guys and ride them out. He's not the most exciting fighter. I don't think that the UFC is the biggest fan of him, and I'm actually surprised they're even giving him another opportunity, first and foremost, right? He's coming off 2 losses, but you take a look at the level of competition. They threw him in there with Gelton Almeida and Vitor Petrino, 2 of the most talented up-and-coming Brazilian fighters, and they're giving him another opportunity, I think that Tyson Pedro is going to be a fighter that's going to be hard for him to just hang on and use his little inside trip and grind out a decision against, and I think that Tyson Pedro will be game here. Tyson Pedro's striking is over, it's overhyped at times as well. I think that he's lacking. He's a little slow at times, but Anton's striking is nothing to rave about as well. So this is an interesting fight. if you will. I won't go on too much more about it. I think that Tyson Pedro will be competent enough to stuff the takedowns of Anton, and I think he can keep this fight on the feet. He's a lengthy fighter, so is Anton as well, but Tyson Pedro will have a 1-inch reach advantage, and maybe he could use some leg kicks from the outside and kind of outpoint Anton. This is a fight that I think will play out closely. I'll tell you that right now. I think this is a fight that plays out closely. Tyson Pedro opened up as a -147 favorite. Finally, you see that line more reasonable, and you see it going the opposite way. So people are sharpening up to the product that Tyson Pedro is. Okay, I think Bukauskas really showcased that. Bukauskas was able to go out there and outstrike him with his volume and whatnot. I just don't know if Anton could do that. It's possible. I'll say that there's more value on this Pedro line, especially as it's closing to a pick'em line at this point in time. I think that's not a bad thing there. If you're liking Pedro, you're getting pick'em odds. I have no problem with that. Pedro in his hometown as well. He's hungry coming off the loss. I like Tyson Pedro. Understand, though, that Turkalj is a guy he's tough, and he'll try to use his grappling, and he'll try to stifle Pedro, and maybe he can get on top of him and keep this fight close or whatnot, or kind of have some pitter-patter exchanges that play out closely. But even in that type of affair, the judges are going to lean towards the hometown guy in Pedro. So I like Pedro here. I like Pedro, and obviously I don't have a problem with the line. It's essentially a pick 'em odds. All right, we got the rematch set. Justin Tafa, the leader of the Tafa gang, taking on Austen Lane. Austen Lane obviously brutally eye-poked Justin Tafa in that last fight that had to stop the fight within seconds. This is a fight that you could tell is going to be a good one, right? Especially with the backstory. There's some animosity here. I like this fight. Austen Lane's a fighter that first came onto the scene getting knocked out by Greg Hardy, right? Remember that fight on the Contender Series? That was back in 2018. That was 5 years ago. Obviously, he had a lot of time to round out his game. And understand that we're talking about an NFL-type athlete, I believe. I believe he actually was in the NFL. I mean, this is an athletic dude. He's a big dude. And I give him a lot of props because after that loss, he went out there, got knocked out again in the first round, but he never gave up on the game, man. You see this. He's continuously been battling it out, and you see a lot of green next to his name. Going out there, taking out guys like Juan Adams, Richard Jacoby. That was the victory he had on the Contender Series in his second chance on the show. And obviously he got the contract, right? I believe he did get the contract, and that led him to the Tafa fight. The thing I like about Lane is that he's very rangy. He has quick movement for his size. When you talk about a guy that is, real quick, I want to get a height on him real quick in this matchup. Going into this fight, he's 6'6" compared to the 6 foot of Justin Tafa. He has a 6-inch reach advantage as well. The issue that he has, obviously, is that Justin Tafa is a much more polished striker. But if Austen Lane can move around enough to avoid that big shot, I do believe that if this fight goes into the second and third rounds, that he can edge out a decision. I think that the activity and the movement can give Tafa some issues. Tafa is a guy that really, really headhunts and goes out there and looks to land that fight-ending shot. And obviously, it's very realistic that he goes out there and does that. But again, if he does not land that first-round knockout or that early second-round knockout, I think that there is some writing on the wall that Justin Tafa can lose a decision here. You take a look at Tafa's 6 professional wins, all 6 via knockout, and check this out. Look at the rounds that all these victories are coming in. In the first round against Porker Porter, in the first round against Harry Honeysuckle, okay, in the first round against Juan Adams, okay, in the second round against David Timo Pia, in the first round against Jeremy Joyner, and the second round against Dylan Taliega. Okay, so, I mean, just understand that this is a guy that he's really a front runner, man. Got knocked out in the first round against Jorgen De Castro. Lost a decision to Carlos Felipe. That was a close fight, if I remember correctly. Lost a decision to Jared Vandera. Okay, guys, let that sink in there for a second. All right, that fight was just a couple years ago in 2021. All right, so Austen Lane has shown some growth. I think that the issue, again, is that Austen Lane is not... He's not as technical, man. He's like wobbly. He's out there. He's moving around. He's herky-jerky, but he's long. He's athletic. And you saw in the first fight, that's how he poked Tafa in the eye. He's trying to keep his range where he could land those body kicks from the outside and kind of out-volume Tafa. But Tafa's going to be looking to close that distance and looking to land that big shot. And Lane is a guy that has shown that he's prone to being knocked out. You take a look at his losses. I think all of them are via knockout, right? All 3 of those losses there are all all 3 of his losses are via knockout loss. I'm going to say I had Justin Tafa to get that first round knockout here. I think that he has the animosity going into this one. I think he's going to close the distance, and he'll be the more refined striker. He's a very, very polished kickboxer. Him and his brothers are all very polished kickboxers. But I will caution you here as we get to the betting line. I do not like this line next to Justin Tafa's name, the -250 line. I don't think he should be that big of a favorite. I think that Lane is going to have a lot of movement out here. I think he's the better athlete. He's long. And if he just polishes up his defense, if he polished up his defense enough where he could avoid that big shot, I think that he could win the latter rounds in this fight. I think he could be the better conditioned fighter. And I think that there's a realistic avenue that we go out here, or we see Austen Lane go out there and get a victory. I'm letting you guys know that right now. Okay, I'll edge Justin Tafa to get that first round knockout, but not crazy about the line. I think the value is on Austen Lane. If you're looking to bet this fight, I think the value is in Austen Lane at a +190 line, almost a 2-1 underdog. That's where the value's at, in my opinion. In the co-main event, we got Manel Kape taking on the UFC newcomer, the young buck, Felipe dos Santos, only 22 years old. Felipe dos Santos was supposed to be fighting on this season's Dana White's Contender Series. They threw him on this card after Kiefer France did have to withdraw. I believe Kiefer France had some concussion symptoms from sparring that just happened recently. He announced it on his Instagram. And that was a fight I was obviously much more looking forward to. But this kid, Felipe dos Santos, is a talented fighter. This is a little bit of a weird matchup, but Felipe dos Santos fighting out of Box. You guys know that these fighters are being prepared, and they've been really having a lot of success training under, I believe the head coach is Diego Lima, not to be mixed with the Diego Lima that used to fight in the UFC. Diego and Douglas Lima, the brothers, I believe they represent American Top Team, a different Diego Lima, training Charles Oliveira and all them. But those fighters have really been doing their thing. Felipe dos Santos, 7-0. He's undefeated. But Manel Kape is a much more proven fighter at this point in time. He's much more mature. And let's cut to the chase here. I mean, I'm leaning Manel Kape. I mean, it's a little bit of a mismatch in some aspects. The only thing is that Dos Santos is a very talented fighter. From the tape you could pull up on him, he's very scrappy, very well-rounded, does everything well, as do a lot of those shoot-the-box fighters. He's going to be aggressive, so you'll have his moments to potentially have success here. But I think that will play into Manel Kape, who has shown to be a good counter striker at times. Maybe we see Dos Santos run right into a flying knee or something like that. Manel Kape has good wrestling as well. I could see him being physically stronger, using his wrestling to get this fight down to the mat and control him down there, maybe rain down some ground and pound. Yes, I am siding with Manel Kape. I'm happy to see that Manel is still on this card, but a little bit of an interesting matchup. And maybe Dos Santos comes out here, shocks the world, makes a name for himself. But it's just hard to point towards that direction right now. And you take a look at Manel, he's on a 3-fight winning streak. And you take a look at the losses that he had coming into the UFC. Both those fights played out very closely, and we're talking about the current champion in Alexander Pantoja and then Matheus Nicolau, one of the top fighters in the division. Both those fights played out very closely. In those fights, Manel was a little hesitant with his volume. So obviously you don't want him doing that here. Maybe if he doesn't have enough volume, maybe Dos Santos can edge out a victory, but I don't see it. 3 victories in a row after that. 2 finishes over Ode Osborne and Zhalgas Magulov. They don't look as good right now. Those fighters haven't been looking as good, but still. And then one other thing I'll let you know, if you're looking to break down tape on that fight, type in Felipe dos Santos MMA or whatnot, and you're going to see he uses a different name. He used to have a different name for some reason. I believe his last name started with the D. I don't know what's up with that. Even his first name in 2 different videos, they used like a nickname and 2 different nicknames in both those videos. They made it very tricky. I don't know. The Brazilians do that a lot. Even one of his opponents had a different name than you see on his Tapology resume. It's all over the place, but it is him for sure. You could pull up 2 fights of him on YouTube. It's definitely him. You could check the tattoos. He's all tatted up and whatnot. I got Manel Kape getting the job done here. He's too much more of an experienced and mature fighter and has a lot of tools. He's at the -370 right now in my bookie. There's a lot of question marks going into this fight, man. So you want to pay almost a 4-1 tag on him, throw him in a parlay. There's a lot of question marks here. He's a better fighter, more proven fighter. What is this young buck? How is this young buck going to look on this big stage here? Again, he's a well-rounded fighter too. Dos Santos is a good striker, good jiu-jitsu guy and all that. So, what do you do with that line? Maybe more value on Kape still. I think Kape shows up. I think he shows up and gets the job done. He very well should. Probably the second biggest fight we have on the card, Tuivasa. He's from the area. Number 6th ranked heavyweight fighter right now, taking on the number 8th ranked heavyweight fighter. I find those rankings a little interesting. Alexander Volkov. You guys know I'm very high on Volkov. Volkov will have a 5-inch reach advantage. He's 5 inches taller. We know he's going to have that length advantage. A very, very polished striker, a very tough fighter, underrated takedown defense. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention when I flew out to Vegas and I had a giant ticket in my hand on Alexander Volkov to defeat Derek Lewis, and he blew it with seconds to go. Derek Lewis and Tai Tuivasa, similar fighters to an extent, right? Fighters that are very dangerous on the feet, a little sloppy at times and whatnot. So, I was rewatching some tape on that fight a little bit going into this card here, and I expect it to be a similar type of fight. I think that Volkov can really pick apart Tai Tuivasa from the outside and outclass him with the striking, while Tai Tuivasa will look to be tough and durable and try to land a big shot and look to shake things up. Okay, I think that Volkov, though, is going to be a little bit too much, and if you're banking on Tai Tuivasa, I think you're really going to be hoping he land, waiting for him to land that big shot. And I really don't like to be in those types of situations personally. Volkov, out of 46 professional fights, he's only been knocked out 2 times. Okay, you understand that. And the one guy he was knocked out by, and Derek Lewis, is the all-time knockout leader in the UFC. Okay, he was submitted by Tom Aspinall. You guys know how high I am on Tom Aspinall, so no shame there. Lost a decision to Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades kept pushing with the wrestling. I don't see this fight playing out anything like that. Again, the knockout to Derek Lewis, and then you're going to go all the way back to, let's pull up that first knockout loss that he took, which was, if we could even pull that up over here. Come on now. Oh, it was against Vitaly Minakov. If you guys remember Vitaly Minakov, a guy that had a lot of success over in Bellator. That was his other knockout loss. He took that in the first round. So that was a long time ago. Volkov, again, I'm very high on Volkov here. I'll cut to the chase. I think that Volkov is the much more polished striker. He has the frame to strike from the outside. And even though I'm such a Tai Tuivasa fan, I saw him fight live. I believe it was his last fight, right, against Sergey Pavlovich. We'll run through his resume. But in that fight, he was just outclassed. I have a feeling this fight might play out similarly to that. I think this might be a little bit of a letdown for the crowd. I love me some Tai Tuivasa, one of the coolest guys in the game. But again, I think that Volkov is just a better fighter. And Tai Tuivasa was just brutally beaten down by Sergey Pavlovich. Trust me, I saw that fight live, and it was eerie. The crowd all quieted down really quick. The fight took place in Orlando. And then before that, knocked out against Cyril Gahn, outclassed there. I think that you take a look at these last 2 fights and you see something very similar going on, just a higher caliber of an opponent, a higher caliber striker. That's how I see this fight playing out. Let's go take a look at the betting line. Volkov opened up as a -200 on my bookie. It went the other way. He was a -188. He's a -204 right now, which I still like that line. And the reason why I'm mentioning this line on my bookie, if you take a look at a lot of the other books, Volkov is as high as he was a 244, now at 235 on Bet Online. He's a -230 on Bovada. He's even a 240 now. So action is coming in on him. So, if you can still get it around the 204 line, if you could shop that line, I think that's a great line. He's a -248 on Jazz Sports. And I understand why that line's like that personally. I think that Volkov's the better fighter. And I think that Volkov gets a finish. I think he puts an onslaught of volume on Tai Tuivasa, breaks him down, works the body kicks and all that, and breaks him down and gets that finish. Give me the big boy Alexander Volkov to get the finish there. This is what it's all about here. The main event, Israel Adesanya, the current middleweight champion, taking on the number 5th ranked middleweight fighter here in Sean Strickland. I would definitely argue to you that this fight is more than warranted. This is such an exciting fight, and Sean Strickland's been on an absolute tear. Adesanya already has victories over Robert Whittaker multiple times. The Jared Cannonier fight was such a letdown. If you remember that one, Cannonier didn't show any volume. I didn't want to see that fight again. Obviously, we don't want to see Marvin Vettori rematch Adesanya. I'm tired of that fight. They fought twice already. Paulo Costa he has a big fight coming up. This was the fight to make. You take a look at the top 15 in the middleweight division. This was the fight to make. You guys know I feel the middleweight division is very shallow. And, if some of you guys feel that Sean Strickland's not deserving up until this point, he did have a loss somewhat recently. But you know what? This is the fight. Sean Strickland comes in on a 2-fight winning streak, went out there, took out Nasruddin Amavov on short notice, went out there in the last fight, broke down Abu Magomedov. That was a beautiful performance, the way he broke him down. I had him defeating Jared Cannonier. He outstruck him in that fight. I thought that he defeated Cannonier, but Cannonier looked good as well. Let me make sure I bring that up. So he had the loss there, and then he also had the loss to Alex Pereira. But again, the Cannonier fight, I think that the UFC kind of calculated that as a win because a lot of people had him winning that fight. But he was knocked out against Alex Pereira, had the hands down, something that we definitely got to note going into this fight, fighting a talented kickboxer like Izzy. Broke down Jack Hermanson with the striking. He's had some big wins throughout his career, man. Knocked out Brendan Allen, who was one of the next fighters to be pushing towards a title shot. You know, that's a name you got to keep an eye on. And so listen, let's talk about Sean Strickland real quick, man. A polarizing figure in the game. This is a guy he's cut from a different cloth, man. Sean Strickland truly is. He is a similar type of fighter of what you would think back from the fighters that used to fight in like UFC 20, UFC 22, the Don Fry type of fighters, those types of guys. And I don't even mean like stylistically. I'm just talking about these guys that go out there, they spar hard, they go out there to break down their opponent, they go out there to actually fight their opponent. Sean Strickland's not a guy that's really using high fight IQ, and that could cause him some issues here. Because, you know, there's a possibility that he could use his grappling to go in here and get the job done. Now, do you have faith that he's going to do that? I don't. How can you have faith in Sean Strickland doing that when he literally says that he's probably not going to do that, even though he should? Didn't do it against Alex Pereira. So, I mean, Sean Strickland's a different type of guy, but he does bring in some real elements that are going to be a threat to Israel Adesanya. And I'm going to bring these up real quick because, first off, let me just say, I'm going to come back, but just so you understand, Israel Adesanya is a big favorite. He's a minus 625 right now. I think that that's a little bit of a push, and I'll tell you why. Sean Strickland, first and foremost, there is going to be that potential that Sean Strickland can use his grappling to go out there and have a little bit of an edge against Israel Adesanya. I'm telling you, Sean Strickland has, if you hear people in the inner circle and they know about Sean Strickland's skills, I mean, you hear Michael Bisping saying he's a world-class grappler. Sean Strickland is a legitimate grappler, man. He has some solid BJJ. Trust me, he can have some success against Izzy down in the mat if he can get it there. Also, if he doesn't get knocked out early in this fight, which is a strong possibility. If he doesn't, and this fight starts to play out like the fight where Kelvin Gastelum and Izzy went to war, if it plays out like that, Sean Strickland has a crazy amount of volume, and he's a good striker in his own right, so it could play out a lot closer than a minus 625 line on Israel Adesanya. The problem is, though, Israel Adesanya is so much more well-tuned and fine-tuned with the striking, and the thing I don't like about Sean Strickland is he keeps his hands low, and he uses his head movement with his hands down a lot to try to just stay just out of range and then counter strike. And when he puts his head back, when he's weaving like that, I could see Israel Adesanya closing the distance with his footwork and teeing off with a big shot or setting up a head kick. I mean, he's a tactician out there. And I think that there's a very, very likelihood that Israel Adesanya gets a knockout. That's what I see happening more than anything in this matchup. I see Israel Adesanya landing a knockout, setting up a knockout with Sean Strickland getting sloppy on the feet. But just back to that betting line, Sean Strickland has some very realistic possibilities to stay in this fight with his grappling, or just if he can survive and the fight goes to the later rounds and it's less likely to see a knockout and we see him just kind of going to war. Sean Strickland has amazing cardio, and I would argue to you that Sean Strickland is a better and more dangerous fighter than what Kevin Gastelum was going into that Izzy fight. Obviously, Izzy's becoming a better version of himself too, but I think Sean Strickland's a legitimate threat. I'm telling you guys now. But I do have Israel Adesanya landing that counter KO. And you know, Izzy said he's going to have the nails done up. He's going to have the French manicure going into the cage. He's going to slap Sean up with the French manicure, and you know he's going to show it to the camera. I think there's a very realistic possibility that plays out just like that. And, oh man, you guys know how much I despise seeing that type of stuff. And then some of you guys like that stuff. Listen, Izzy ain't my favorite fighter for some specific reasons, and hopefully you guys don't hold me to the fire for that. Hopefully we could, I respect that you guys have certain fighters you guys like, and I have my own fighters I like. But Izzy ain't it for me, man. It's just I grew up in a different era. I was raised a different way, man. I'm a different type of dude, and I know some of you young bucks out there, man. You guys were raised in a whole different climate. You know what I mean? You guys like to dabble the other way with all that stuff, and it's a little different for me. So I don't know if Izzy's coming out with the pink hair and the French manicure, and you guys are all, you guys will have your pom poms out doing your cheerleader dance, rooting for him. If that's your guys' thing, that's more power to you, man. Sean Strickland, on the other hand, at least in my opinion, he's way more of a man's man, and I like that about him. Obviously, there's some things I'm not really crazy about with him. He's obviously very different than I am in a variety of ways. But there's also a lot of things that I gravitate towards in a Sean Strickland. And I think there's a lot of people out there, a lot of fight fans that gravitate towards a guy like Sean Strickland. A lot of people, you see this a lot in society, man. People generalize people, and then some people would look at a Sean Strickland and think that he has more of like a catered upbringing. You hear all these things that people are talking about in the media, man. It's all these generalized statements. I would argue that Israel Adesanya is a way more pampered baby. You know what I mean? He's a one of those modern day type of kids, man. And Sean Strickland, there's a lot of people out there, man. I could relate to him in a lot of ways that grew up like a Sean Strickland. Okay, people just assume that you guys know what I'm saying. They look at you and they think that you have this privilege and all this stuff, and they don't know what you got going on in your own home and things that people went through, bro. So I don't know. I like that about Sean Strickland. He's a regular person, man. I grew up around all these types of people, man. That's the type of people I grew up around and stuff. So I could relate to him in a lot of ways. He was different in other aspects and stuff, but I can relate to a kid like him. He reminds me of all the type of dudes I used to hang out with. Just troubled, coming from tough houses and weird upbringings in their houses, going through their own growing pains and all that. Now, he didn't really dabble with drugs and like that. A lot of people I grew up with, a lot of them died, overdosed on drugs, went to prison and stuff like that. But he was all messed up in his own way. You guys heard him on the Rogan show. He grew up in a disruptive home, and I can relate to people like that. That's what I grew up around. And I think Israel Adesanya comes from a family, which there's nothing wrong with that. He comes from a family of very intelligent African parents that migrated over to Australia or New Zealand, made a very smart move and whatnot. And I think that Israel Adesanya is a lot more, he's a lot more of a privileged dude than a Sean Strickland is, when people will try to spin things and try to paint a different narrative. And that's why I don't like when anyone's painted with any brush, man. You should get to know people and understand what they're about before you judge them and whatnot. But Sean Strickland is a real dude in my opinion. Even though I disagree with him on certain things, I think he's a little bit out there and stuff, but I enjoy hearing him chirp it up. And if he becomes a champion, I think that would be it would be wild. So I'm rooting for him. I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. I'm rooting for him, and I don't think he gets it done though. I think that Israel Adesanya counter KOs him. That's how I'm going with this. But that line, little too high for me. It's a little too high for me, so I ain't touching that. I would even say the values on Sean Strickland, if you can get him 5-1 odds. All right, guys, that's gonna wrap up UFC 293. I'm not gonna hit you guys up with the parting words too much, or the parting speech, because I kind of just did it as I was breaking down that main event. I just say, man, don't judge books on their cover. And a guy like Sean Strickland too, man. He's talked about how he grew up, kind of being like kind of a piece of shit with some of his views and whatnot. You guys know what I'm talking about, which I definitely don't agree with any of that stuff. But I think it's cool when you see somebody mature and grow. I mean, you take a look at Sean Strickland's best friend, who is Chris Curtis, man. I like to see people mentally evolve. And I think that training mixed martial arts is something that obviously it's a fact, I think he's even admitted it, that's led Sean Strickland to growing as a human being, right? And opening his eyes up, man, training with different people, getting to know all different walks of life. And that's something that I respect and I relate to. So I admire the fact that he's changed as a person compared to when he was just a lost individual when he was young. He didn't know any better, man. It goes like that with a lot of different people on both sides. When people aren't taught right about other types of people and they don't learn, it takes them time to learn. Sometimes they never learn. It's unfortunate, but hopefully you guys do learn that as well. Quick story, man. I went to watch these fights a couple weeks ago. Just throw this out there, man. This was pretty cool. It was literally like a movie scene, man. I'll tell you this. I went to a local Buffalo Wild Wings, and as I walked up to the bar, literally there was not one seat at the bar. And I'm like, shit, I grab a beer. I'm sitting there kind of standing up. And as I'm walking by, it's like literally like a scene out of like Forrest Gump. I kid you not. This dude had a little stand-up table, one of those high-top tables. And as I'm walking by, man, a really cool dude, he patted the table, man, like literally like that, pat, and he's like, you're over here with me. I sat down, gave him a look, what's up, he's like, yo, I got the table by myself. He's like, I came out for the night, my boys couldn't make it out, they're out of town up in New York. He's like, the table's yours if you want it. I sat there, I watched the entire main card with this dude who was from a different walk of life, I guess you would say. Maybe not even from a different walk of life, you know what I mean? But maybe a little different. And I enjoyed sitting there talking with him more than I've enjoyed sitting down talking with someone about fights and whatnot, watching the fights in a long time. So, I just say that as just, open your eyes up, man, and always be looking to meet different types of people and whatnot, and understand that you have more in common with some people than other people when you really wouldn't think it. That's all I'm saying, man. Just, give everybody their fair shot, get to know them on a personal level before you judge people. Leave you with that. All right, guys? All right, signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.